In a small village surrounded by green mountains and vast fields, where the houses were close together and the alleys narrow, lived a man named George. George was known among the villagers for his great wealth and extreme stinginess. He owned many lands and shops, but he lived a very simple life, refusing to spend anything unless it was absolutely necessary. Every day, he would walk slowly through the market, carefully examining prices before buying anything. Even the vendors avoided talking to him, because they knew he wouldn't buy anything without a long and tedious haggle. George lived with his wife Mary and their only son Jack. Mary was a patient woman who always tried to convince her husband to live a more comfortable and stable life, but to no avail. Jack, on the other hand, was an energetic and beloved child who dreamed of becoming a doctor when he grew up. Days passed peacefully in the village until that fateful day when everything changed. One day, Jack fell ill with a mysterious sickness. It started with a mild cough, but soon progressed to general weakness and a high fever. Mary tried to care for him at home, but his condition didn't improve. They took him to the local doctors in the village, but none of them could diagnose his illness. One of them finally said, "This disease requires specialized treatment in the big city." When George heard this, he felt as if the ground beneath him was shaking. He knew that treatment in the city would be extremely expensive. He spent sleepless nights thinking, tossing and turning in bed, staring at his large savings. Money had always been sacred to him, and the idea of spending it pained him more than his son's illness. Mary tried to talk to him. "George, Jack is our most precious possession. We can't let him suffer." Even his relatives and friends pleaded with him. "George, money can be replaced, but your son cannot." Yet George hesitated, torn between his love for his son and his lifelong habit of stinginess. Finally, after days of hesitation, George decided to take Jack to the city. He sold a small piece of land to raise some money and set off with Mary and Jack on a long journey. When they arrived in the city, they went to the best hospital. The doctor examined Jack and informed them that his condition was critical and required immediate, expensive treatment. George stood silently, looking at his pale, suffering son. Then he raised his head and said to the doctor, "Do whatever is necessary to save him. I'll pay whatever you ask." The treatment began, and it was indeed costly. George sold more of his properties, one piece after another, until his wealth began to dwindle rapidly. But he never regretted it. All that mattered to him was saving Jack. One day, while George was sitting in the waiting room, a mother walked by carrying her sick child. She was crying and pleading with the nurses to let her into the emergency room because she didn't have enough money. George felt a pang in his heart. He remembered how he had refused to help others in the past and how he had always valued money above everything else. George decided to help that mother. He gave her some money so she could treat her child. That moment marked a turning point in his life. After weeks of treatment, Jack gradually began to recover. His health and smile returned. George and Mary felt overwhelming joy. When they returned to the village, George was a completely different man. He no longer wore old clothes or lived a stingy life. He began spending money generously on Jack and Mary, and he started helping those in need in the village. The villagers were amazed by his transformation. They asked him why he had changed, and George simply replied, "I realized that money is a means, not an end. The most precious things in life are priceless. True wealth is not in the abundance of money, but in the value of what cannot be bought." Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, leave a like and subscribe for more.